You meet someone, they've got so much promises. Maybe you're not quite where you want them to be, but you can see through them who they could become tomorrow. Their potential just shine through, right? Sometimes we tell ourselves, if only they got a little more motivated, a little more emotionally available, or if they could just work on themselves a little bit more, they could just be perfect. But the thing is, loving someone for who they might become, I want to burst your bubble, it's not really loving them at all. It is just loving a fantasy. Yeah. And I know this from experience. So let's talk about it. Why we get caught in this kind of a trap, why it's never work out the way we hope, and how we can shift our thinking to focus on something more important, on the person standing in front of us, not the version we have created in our heads. Hi, you're welcome to today's podcast with Mom Ziba. I am Mom Ziba, a podcaster and also a blogger. I deal on relationship and I give you tips on how to make your relationship better. I share my personal anecdotes and other people anecdotes with you, and which can help better your relationship in case your relationship is in a fix. So right now, today, we are going to be talking about an important and interesting topic. If this is your first time, don't forget to click on the notification button and the follow button as well. So today's topic is crushing on potential. Why do we fall for who people could be and how to really stop? Yeah. So we're talking about something just now. I want to share a story with you. I remember when I was in a relationship vividly with this guy, all right? Nick. So when we first met, there was something magnetic about him. He was ambitious, talented, and to be honest, a little bit of a mess. He talked about all his big dreams that he had in his head that he wanted to be, and achieve in his career. It's really exciting being around him. Okay, he has a lot of energy that was actually contagious. And to some extent, I was hooked. But here's the catch. While I and Nick had all these dreams and potential, he was actively working towards them. He was not actually working towards them, rather. He was always inconsistent. So, just like 1 week he's focused, the next week he's off his goals and back to his old habits. But actually, I didn't really care because I could see through him, and all I see all the time is his potentials. I believed if I was talked around enough, encouraged him, he would get there someday. I mean, I knew he had it in him, so to say. When I didn't realize back then was that I wasn't really in love with who Nick was actually. I was only in love with his idea, a version of him that really has not started existing. And let me tell you, that's a very, very dangerous thing today. It kept me stuck in that relationship for quite a long time. In reality, it was not fulfilling. But I couldn't just let go because I was actually investing in the present. I believe that I'm not actually investing in the present, but I was possibly investing in his possible future. I think back now and wonder, what if I had loved Nick for who he actually was that moment, rather than who I wanted him to be? What if I have paid attention to the fact that he wasn't ready to live up to his potential yet? Would I have seen that we weren't actually compatible at all? Probably I was blinded by who he could be tomorrow, rather than who he actually was. So here is it. Let's discuss. So why do we really fall for potential? Why do we really do this to ourselves? A lot of people are living in a relationship like this, like how I was living before. Why do people really do this? I think part of it comes from we being naturally optimistic, or right? Maybe natural optimism. I don't know. But we see the best in people. And that's not really necessarily a bad thing though. But there is a difference between supporting someone as they grow and falling for an idealized version of them. Yes. When we crush on potentials, we are not truly seeing the person as they are right now. We are seeing them for who they could be in the future, better versions of themselves. And that's where things really get tricky. Many people have found themselves mixed up in this kind of relationship. That's why most of them committal are really far-fetched. One of the biggest dangers of falling for potential is that it creates this unspoken expectation. You are always subconsciously or sometimes very consciously hoping that this person will change and that they will grow into the version of themselves that you have created in your mind. But really the truth is that not everybody wants to change. Not everybody wants to change, yes, or not in the ways that you have actually envisaged or hoped. And even if they do, growth is something that is not just coming from within. That kind of a growth is something that you can love someone into. Yes, it's something that you cannot love someone into. All right? So, continuing with the story I was telling you, there was a moment that in that relationship I was with Nick, it all clicked out for me. We were sitting one day at the couch one night, and I remembered him talking about his business idea that he had for months. I did hear him mention so many times before, but this time I really listened, not to the idea itself, but to the way he talked about it. It was really something, okay, to me that piqued my fancy. It was always someday. He kept on using the word someday, someday, someday. When I get around to it or once things settle down, that's when it hits me. I was in love with a someday version of Nick. That's not the version sitting next to me in that moment. And you know what? I realized that I deserve to be with someone who was showing up for me in the present and not for someone I had to wait for. Things were always so complicated in a relationship. But each time it gets so complicated and I find myself in the fix, I just have a way of encouraging myself by telling myself that, wow, he's just doing it. It's going to be fine. He has a bigger picture. I keep on seeing that bigger picture in him of all the emphasis built up in my mind. And because of that, I felt so clinged to that relationship, whether he was doing things right or not. Okay, until that very day where I had to pinpoint a particular word about someday he kept on using, and I found out that I was not actually with the real person. The person I was with that time was not the vision in my head. That was enough pill to swallow. All right, letting go of potential, of the potential, it meant like letting go of the future I've always envisioned. But it was also incredibly freeing. I started to see the relationship for what it truly was, not what I wanted it to be. You get? I started seeing it for what it really was. It was now naked in my eyes, like, really, is this where we are? And the time I just did that, it became clear that we weren't right for each other. We were not right for each other because he was not working towards that thing he has painted in my head. He was not ready to work towards it at that moment. And commitment was not forthcoming because he was not serious towards what he has planned out and make me believe. So, reflection and practical takeaways that you should have. So, how do you stop falling for potential and start appreciating people for who they truly are? And not committing the mistake that I once found myself into. Acknowledge the present. Acknowledge the reality. Ask yourself, are you in love with the person in front of you or who you hope they will become tomorrow? Be brutally honest with yourself. Are they actually showing the qualities that you want? Are you waiting for them to develop those traits? Number 2, look for consistency. Potentials often reveals itself in glimpses, moments where someone shows you who they could be, but pay attention to their actions over time. If they are telling you something and they are acting something else, then there is a glitch somewhere. Not just occasional burst of motivation. Remember, consistency is key. If they are not actively working towards the growth or change, don't assume that one day they will change. It's a lie, okay? So stop projecting your desires into them. Number 3, it is very easy to project what we want onto someone else, but it's not fair to them or to you. Allow people to be who they are, not who you just want them to be. If who they are isn't really aligned with who you want them to be as a partner, then it's okay for you to move on. So number 4, value compatibility over potentials. Ultimately, it's about finding someone who has the same page with you right now. All right, someone who is actively working on themselves, someone who's also showing up for you at the present moment. That's the person worth investing in. Falling for potential can feel a little bit really romantic, but real love is about connection in the here and in the now. So if you're in a situation where you're constantly waiting for someone to change and grow, ask yourself, are you really in love with them, or are you in love with their potential? And is that enough for you? So that's all for today's episode, friends. If you have ever find yourself falling for potential, know that it's just a common trap, one that many of us has fallen into sometime in our lives. But the beauty of real love is that it's built on what's present and not what's promised. The right person will show up at the right time, just as they are, and that is more fair. That's more fairer and enough for you. Thanks for listening to this beautiful episode of mine, Crushing on the Potential. All right, it's a hard shift. If you found today's episode very, very helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear this too. Until next time, love the person in front of you, not the idea of who they could be. Bye now. Bye bye.